Hello, this is the lecture for Unit 14, Embarking on Your Life's Work. College students are typically encouraged to think of intellectual activity as taking place in relatively short bursts, resulting in a particular outcome, and flickering out once the exam has been taken, or the research paper written, or the presentation delivered, or the marking period closed. This week, you have an A&P exam. Next week, there's an English paper due. And then the week after that, you're supposed to give a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation about Oliver Cromwell. And all of these accomplishments, as educational and as rewarding as they might be, come and go as a series of compartmentalized flare-ups. In the professional workplace, the timeline of individual projects that need to be accomplished may be a little longer. You may have a year to compile a particular report, or you may take a few years to follow through with a particular study or initiative. But this kind of professional experience is also characterized by discrete, interchangeable, self-enclosed tasks. The preparation of original work for a public audience, however, encourages writers to think more broadly about the big picture that motivates them to do this kind of work. While it is true that each individual article you write, or conference presentation you prepare, or web post you author can be thought of as a single assignment that has a life cycle with a beginning, middle, and end, coming up with the idea, putting the project together, and publishing or presenting it, the most effective writers are those who are motivated by a vision that transcends any individual act of authorship. Rather than jumping around randomly from one writing project to another, such writers consider each writing project as an expression of a larger project that is actually a life project, an existential commitment that informs and pervades their writing, their careers, and their lives. One way of thinking about it is that these writers are effectively cultivating their own personal brand. Although they may have published 10 different articles in 10 different publications with 10 different titles, there is a certain constellation of concerns, a certain way of seeing the world, and a certain voice that makes all 10 articles part of a higher unity. A more elevated way of thinking about it is to suppose that these writers are using their writing to fulfill their destiny of bringing their most intimate and personal passions out into the world to expand people's minds, influence their behavior, and enrich the human experience. Writers who lack a clear sense of their own brand identity may be able to place articles in publications and get invited to conferences, but every new project has to start from scratch rather than building on previous work. Writers who are more self-aware of how their writing reflects their core values, on the other hand, cultivate a certain perspective that they can apply to new writing situations. Rather than working like a college student from one assignment to the next, they work like a small business owner, always thinking about how individual investments of, for writers, time and energy, help to advance an overall goal of long-term success. Although you may be supported throughout your writing efforts by your employer or colleagues, a nonprofit that you volunteer for might help you pay for travel to a conference, or a supervisor might grant you some time off from your regular responsibilities to prepare a piece for publication, writers are typically entrepreneurs who work independently and have to make their own executive decisions about what they write and why. As with any entrepreneur, writers make better decisions when they understand the motivations that drive them and when they have a vivid sense of their ultimate goals. In addition to making it easier to figure out what to write about, moreover, having a strong sense of personal mission keeps writers focused on the primary function of writing, and particularly of publication and presentation, which is to change the world. While academic journals and professional conferences may seem like esoteric and marginal forums, the kinds of conversations instigated in these venues trickle outwards and influence the way people do their jobs, the way people think about themselves, and the way they relate to other people. Your mission as a writer is to get into people's heads and to encourage them to think more deeply and more broadly. This is a mission that is never accomplished in a one-and-done exercise. The mission articulates a call to a deep and abiding commitment that harkens back to the root of who you are as a human being and that lays the groundwork for a meaningful and purposeful life.